Hello everybody, welcome back to a World of Warship Blitz video. This is the video. So this morning the Musashi dropped into my mailbox on the press account, and I did a well, basically what I did was I just did a stats comparison by slowly showing the stats for the ship. So now I'm going to do an active stats comparison with a voiceover, which is, I think, what you guys deserve. So I'm going to now originally I compared it with the Aya and the Yamato. I'm going to compare it with the Missouri because that's a premium ship, so that's more equivalent. And with the Yamato, I'm going to do a little bit of work on the press account to, well, the Yamato needs upgrades. So we're going to use some of these upgrades, quite a lot of them, which could be a bit interesting. Right. Oh. Yeah. Okay then. So it won't be a direct comparison because the AA won't be fully upgraded, but that's probably, you'll get enough of an indication anyway. So there is going to be no elite bonus, but then again, we can tell what the elite bonus is simply by looking at it here. And to be honest, the elite bonus for the Musashi and the Yamato is the same. Right, so let's go through some stats, do some stats review, and then I'll have to work out whether or not I'm brave enough to play a game in it. Built 1943, so fairly late ship. In fact, that seems strange because, well, I understand that the difference between, if you look at the side of the ship between the Yamato and the Musashi, the Yamato basically is stacked full of AA guns. Built in 1941, so obviously upgraded later in the war, whereas 1943 you would have thought there would have been more AA guns, but anyway, that's what well, I've got no information that counteracts that. Right, let's go for some survivability now on the fully upgraded ships. So ship hit points is 59,000. For the Yamato, the ship hit points is 62 because it is tier 10. The Missouri has 53. So the Musashi has quite a lot of hit points. It has 17, 12, 16 and 27. 17, 12, 16 and 28. So basically the same sort of armor profile as the Yamato. This has 15, 30, 15 and 19. So what that means is the fire and flooding resistance for the Missouri is much higher, but the other values are lower, particularly that torpedo reduction. So this has phenomenal torpedo reduction, not quite the same as a fully upgraded Yamato, but still pretty good torpedo reduction. Pretty poor flooding and fire resistance compared with, let's say, the Missouri, and the other factors are pretty much the same. It does have a lot of hit points. From a maneuverability perspective, yeah, okay. I mean, that's probably all we need to say about that. 26 knots. 29 seconds to full speed. I don't think we're going to find much improvement. 26 knots and 27 seconds, so it's slightly faster acceleration, but not much in it. 31 knots, so it's a lot faster, and 25 seconds, so it's a much, well, okay, then it accelerates much faster, but still, may not be apparently, much faster if you're in it. Maximum traverse speed, so the turn time is 18.9 seconds. That's the rudder turn time, I'm guessing. The maximum traverse speed is 4.4 degrees per second. Now, I don't think the Yamato is going to do any better than that. In fact, it has a slightly faster traverse speed, but a slightly worse rudder turn time. For the Missouri, faster on both counts, but still, it's a battleship, so yeah, don't expect it to be nimble. It's probably my recommendation there. Right, moving right along to the main event for the Musashi, the guns. Now this is going to be a much better comparison than this morning's video because, well, we've got everything fully upgraded. So let's go. The Musashi, it's 24-second reload, which is the longest reload of all those guns. 15.3 kilometer range, a 1300 HE damage and a 2200 AP damage. So this reloads a second and a half faster at 23 seconds. It shoots a kilometer further at 16.41. Instead of 1300, it's 1400 HE damage, and it's nearly 2300, so it's a little bit more AP damage. Still the same 15% fire chance. 4 degrees of turret rotation is pretty standard, and that's going to be glacial, guys, so this is going to be vulnerable to destroyers. For the Missouri, 22 seconds, 15.3 kilometers, so still fires further than the Musashi. Less damage from an HE perspective, so instead of 1300 it's 1150, 13% fire chance, which is smaller, and about 300 less AP damage. A 5 degree per second turret traverse speed is faster, of course, but yeah, 5% isn't anything to write home about. Secondaries, so this has secondary guns and automatic secondaries. I think the automatic secondaries from memory should be pretty much similar to the Yamato. The Yamato has basically does 8 more damage and fires an extra 0.08 kilometers. But otherwise, those automatic secondaries are the same. The Missouri doesn't have automatic secondaries. So yeah. As for secondary guns, they are very much the they're very much 6-inch guns. So 9-second reload, 6.9 kilometer range, 550-ish damage and 5% fire chance. So slightly higher damage, but still 550 of damage. A slightly higher range, but 9-second reload and a 5% fire chance. So the range is up by 0.15, which for secondaries is actually worth it. Secondaries are very range sensitive, so if you have any sort of stretch on the range, it's actually quite good. The Missouri, well, its secondaries fire a couple of kilometres shorter. They do 387 rather than 543, so well, they fire 1 kilometre shorter, so it's 6.9 versus 5.87, so basically 5.9. It has much faster traverse speed, but pretty low. It's the same low chance of setting fires, or in fact lower chance of setting fires. So the Musashi has better secondaries than the Missouri. As for anti-aircraft suite, let's go back to the Musashi. So this is the fully upgraded anti-aircraft, 170, 113. The fully the non-upgraded Yamato is still streets better. So instead of 170 large caliber AA, it's got 288. It's got the same ranges, and instead of 100, it's got over double the small AA damage, and that's without any upgrades. Of course, both of them look second best to the Missouri, which, well, it's probably about 4 times the small AA of the Musashi. So the Musashi is going to be an aircraft carrier magnet. The detection range is, yeah, right. I mean, basically 12 kilometres, 12 kilometres. This is the stealthiest, being 0.3 of a kilometre better from a detection radius, but 12.3 kilometres is still an awful long way. Right, historical camo is 4 hit points, 4% firing range, 4% hit points, 4% firing range, 4% shell dispersion, and 6% torpedo reduction, damage reduction, which is pretty standard battleship fare. I think that's what the Bismarck has, and I'm pretty sure that's what the Yamato has as well. And yeah, all the same values. So definitely worth it from a range and a dispersion. And yeah, so those are all good things. It's not like, let's say, the Helena historical camo, which makes it into a better AA ship, which is not really something you're too interested in. Right, so if we go back to the Musashi, the final thing for the Musashi, sort of the review, I suppose, is to look at the specialist skills. So it has a torpedo damage reduction plus 10, or a main battery reload time 3%, and a main battery traverse of 7%. And to be honest, that's the one that I would pick for this ship, because, well, that reload is pretty slow. So it may hit hard, but you've got to make sure that you're accurate. Do I want to take this out into battle? I'm not really too sure if I do, to be honest, because I'm not going to do it justice. Yeah, it's a ship that you, yeah, these top tier premiums are ships that really reward perhaps the most, yeah, the most dedicated players. I'm not sure what's happening to my screen there. Get some light. And yeah, well, let's see if we can get some light back on that subject. Right, thank you. What we'll do is we'll load it up with some supplies. There's no point in loading up with AA because basically, well, it's going to make very little difference. Now, normally, let's treat this as a ship that I'd take out for the first time. So normally I'd make sure that I've got enough consumables. And for a ship I'd take out for the first time, I would also not take out any equipment. Now, the reason for that is that at 3 million per slot or more, yeah, the last thing you want to be doing is playing around with it. So you get a feel for the ship and then you tweak the bits of the ship that don't work for you. So let's say I find that the turret traverse is just too glacial, you know, even though that does have the opportunity for some dispersion improvement, you know, I'd take the turret traverse because basically if your guns aren't pointing at the target, it doesn't matter how good your dispersion is. Right, so let's have a look. So what we'll probably do here is, now that is Garen's traversing. We've got a couple of Azumo and a Magi and destroyers. I'm sort of quite pleased that we're in an AI game here. So, although that's a bit painful, that's the Iowa. It's lovely, isn't it? Getting pushed around the map by the Iowa. We're getting our guns turned. They are turning quite slowly, so just be aware that they are very slow traversing guns. But we're trying to, yeah, okay then. We're at half speed. We pick the speed up. And basically there is a Benson out there, but I don't think I'm going to really bother trying to deal with that. Got a couple of Azumos. Get ourselves rotated. It is turning, well, pretty much like you'd expect the Yamato Musashi to turn. This Azumo is going to be doing its sort of AI glide. And, well, that wasn't particularly helpful, was it? So what I'm going to do now, okay, I have got this this Benson, but I'm not sure I want to get myself off target, to be honest, because my main guns will load and I won't have anything in the tank. I won't be pointing the right direction. So let's see what these guns can do to an Azumo. It has no specialist skill, so it has no... okay, well, they are hard-hitting guns. It's good to see. There you go, this automatic secondaries. His automatic secondaries will cook off as well. We'll just basically make sure that we keep our... okay, well... I'm not getting the citadels that I need to knock this guy out of the game. These are only 6-inch guns, so although we'll get hits with them, that's the Benson. Okay, that was the... is it going to take the Benson down? Someone took the Benson down. Okay, well, yeah, I mean, not that I am any sort of experienced Yamato player, but yeah, well, it's certainly, well, I think probably inconclusive what we'd put that down to. It does, I think the proof of the pudding is we're going to need some players who know how to drive Tier 9 Japanese battleships to play some games and to show us how it's done. But yeah, certainly it's a, well, basically it is a bit of a behemoth, and it does, its reaction is slower than the Azumo, and the Azumo is a hard drive. However, the gun placement is more logical, which makes it a bit useful. That's that second turret, or that third turret that rotates in reverse, really does not do the Azumo any great service. So there's the Musashi. Probably the stats part is more interesting than the battle part. But anyway, let's have a look and just have a look at some stats. So 17 hits for 31,000 damage. Only one citadel, so I probably need to improve. Obviously with that Azumo getting into secondary range, a lot of those are automatic secondary hits, so they do a lot of work, and that would have been the fire that's been started. Yeah, and those hits did quite a lot of damage to modules. I don't think there's really much point in looking at this. It's pretty embarrassing when two of the bot players beat me for points, but yeah, there you go. And that Gascon obviously has it all over me, but then again, he'll probably be more experienced. Anyway, that's the Musashi. I think probably the stats is, as I said, the stats is the most useful part. But thanks for your patience, guys. Sorry this morning's video didn't have a voiceover, but there you go. Probably a better comparison against its actual, well, its historical comparison, the Yamato, and the tier comparison being the other premium tier 9, the Missouri. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.